Welcome to the SAP HANA Academy. My name's Bob, and in this series of videos we're going to be looking at some of the new features in SAP HANA SPS 10. In this series of videos we're going to be looking at some of the new features within Smart Data Integration. So in this video we're going to be looking at a new feature in SAP HANA SPS 10 to do with Smart Data Integration, specifically using the match transform. We're going to be looking at the concept of combining multiple match policies, as well as the columns that are created when you use the match transform. Those columns are conflicts group and review group. So just to give you some background about what we did, I've logged into my catalog. If I go to my SHA schema and expand my list of tables, I'll also launch a SQL console. What we did is we created a table called supplier address, which consisted of these three rows. What you'll notice is that they have very similar data. In fact, the three suppliers all have the same first name, but rows 1 and 2 have the same address, and rows 2 and 3 have the same phone number. That's the key difference here. If I execute the task which we've built, I'll show you that task first. I'll log into my editor as SHA welcome 1. All we've done here, if I expand this flow graph, is built a flow graph which uses that supplier address table and outputs to a table called match policies. If I go into the match transform and edit my match settings, you can see at the moment what we're doing is we're searching for person and address. So the match policy is to match on person and address. If I go back to my catalog and execute the task and look at that table, I've just added a truncate table statement here. What we'll see in this example is that only rows 1 and 2 match. This is indicated by the group ID here. That's because we matched, remember, on name and on address, and in our data set, even though really all three match, only Robert Smith and 12 Spring Street, New York match, so that's why rows 1 and 2 match. Again, however, rows 2 and 3 match, not by address, but by the phone number. So again, what we're going to look at is adding an extra match policy to include searching on name and phone. So let's do this. If I go to back to my editor, we've got person and address. So let's add another match policy. I'm going to also match on person and phone. So I'll select them both, add the policy. But we'll also match address and phone, because there might be occurrences where someone's used an alias name, but they have the same address and phone number. So I'm going to add that policy as well. I'll click on next. Again, we've got the options for person, for address. Again, you can make this looser or tighter depending on what you want to do. I'll click on finish here. All we need to do is save and activate the new match policy and go back to our catalog. So again, this is the data set which is not being executed. We're truncating the target table, we're starting the task, and we're looking at that match policies table. So let's execute it now. So this is great because now we can see, because we specified name, address, name, phone number, and address phone number, which isn't really used here, we can see that we've got a match of all of those three rows. You can see this because of the group IDs repeated for each of the three supply IDs. So why is the conflict group now C for each of the three suppliers? It's very straightforward. Because we've got multiple match policies, we've actually matched on name and address, and also name and phone. Because we've actually matched on multiple policies,
The conflict group is indicated by a C. If there was no conflicts, then you would just get a null value here. So there's a conflict. We've actually matched on two different policies. Of course, name and address, and also name and phone. So let's further investigate. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change this, and I'm going to insert 3 rows. So I'm going to truncate that table and enter the 3 rows. So let me just copy this truncate table statement. And we're going to truncate that supply address table. We don't really need to change the flow graph yet. So again, what's the difference between this data? Well, the difference is it's exactly the same as what we had before, apart from the second column, which is name. Now we've got Rob Smith, Robert Smith, and R. Smith. So because the names are quite similar, in fact, this one is initialed because of this one, and this is similar to this one, we should still get a match. But the difference is now is telling us what should happen is the review group changes, because it should indicate that we actually need to check this data. So let's test this by executing. So all 3 of the columns still match, all 3 of the rows, sorry, still match. They're all conflict groups because of what we discussed before with the different match policies. But now the review group equals R because the name is quite similar, but is not exactly similar. So again, an example would be because this is initialized and this is Robert, these are considered a match. If you want more information, go and look in the documentation under review group. But there's lots of different examples. For example, you might have Robert Hayden Smith and Robert Smith. Hayden Smith being, a double-barreled name, that would be a match. So there's lots of ways you can choose this. Go have a look in the documentation under review groups. But of course, to further investigate this, what we've done up to now is we've matched on name and address and name and phone. Obviously, 1 and 2 match on name and address. 2 and 3 match on name and phone. But let's give a different scenario. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter in another record, which is going to be record number 4. But I'm going to change this to a completely different name. So 4 is going to be Bobby Smythe. Okay, so it's a very, very different name, but it's a similar name. It could be an alias. But what we're going to do here now is, because the address and the phone number is exactly the same, this should actually be included in the same group ID. Again, our match policy, if I go back and edit the match settings, we're not only matching on person address, person phone, but we're matching on address phone. Because we're matching on address phone, this means that even if you've got a wildly wacky alias name, because your address and your phone number is the same, there should be a match. Let's see if it works. There you can see it works. Again, because even though Bobby Smythe, it might be someone different, but because they have the same phone number at the same address, and they're called Bobby Smythe, we've said if the phone and the address also matches name and address and name and phone, they can be allocated to the same group. So I hope you enjoyed that short video on using the review group and conflict group columns, as well as combining multiple match policies within the match transform in Smart Data Integration in SAP HANA SPS 10.